Okay, well, why don't we get started? And if I could ask people to mute if they're not speaking. Right. Okay, great. Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're calling in from. I'm so excited to be here with you today for this important discussion. My name is Heather Barnaby, and I'm the CEO of Girls 20. Before we get started, I would like to open with a land acknowledgement. I am based in what is currently known as Toronto, and we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. As a settler on this land, I've been trying to ensure that my knowledge of Indigenous people in Canada includes celebrating and supporting their art. This can be done in many ways, and today, for example, I'm wearing a shirt designed by Ojibwe artist Tracy Toulouse. Tracy's designs reinforce the Indigenous spirit and its connection to the land, and I feel very fortunate to have a piece of her art. Today, we'll be talking about how our speakers developed their confidence and grew their careers in male-dominated STEM industries. They will also talk about how to identify trends in STEM industries and how young women can have a competitive advantage in the future of work. Before I introduce our speakers, I wanted to do some quick housekeeping. This is the first time the Girls 20 team has used Webinar Jam, this platform, and we're still getting used to it, so we apologize in advance if there are any glitches and appreciate your patience. Please also note that the Girls 20 staff are on this chat as well, and if you have any questions for us or need support on anything, reach out. Our audience can participate in the chat, and interestingly, the new messages come up on top and not on the bottom, which I think we're kind of used to things coming up on the bottom. And then you can also ask a question to our panelists by using the Q&A function. It can be found above the typing bar in the chat. And now I'm so excited to introduce our speakers. So in today's session, we have Mmabatho Mokiti. Mmabatho is a mathematician turned impact entrepreneur with a passion for education and youth development. She is the founder of Mathematics, a STEM corporate social investment consulting company that designs and implements CSI strategies for corporates to invest in sustainable STEM education in rural and disadvantaged areas. She is also the founding member of Dream Girls Academy, a female empowerment and mentoring organization that empowers women and girls through various impactful programs that use mentorship and skills and leadership development as a tool, with a focus on getting more young women in STEM. Her awards, brace yourself for this, her awards include being recognized as one of Mail and Guardian's top 200 young South Africans, WEF Global Shaper, 100 Most Influential Young People in South Africa, Millennials to Look Out For in Business in Africa by Forbes Women Africa, 50 Inspiring Women in STEM by the Embassy of the Netherlands. She's also a Mandela Washington Fellowship Young African Leader, a flagship program of former President of the USA, Barack Obama. Pretty impressive woman, isn't she? And now on to Dr. Astrid Fontaine. Astrid joined Bentley Motors in January of 2018. She's responsible for all strategic and operational aspects of global human resources. In addition, she leads the digital transformation and digitalization of enterprise products, customer-related areas of the business. She's also responsible for full strategic and operational management of all information technology for Bentley Motors globally. As a member of the board of management and director of the company, she has personal responsibility and liability for Bentley Motors. One of Astrid's passions is to lead towards a better gender balance and inclusive culture in the automotive industry. As such, she engages in the career progress for other women and participates in panel discussions, sharing her experience, her vast, very interesting experience, which you'll hear about today. In the past, she's been recognized with the Inspiring Women in Automotive Award from the 30% Club, as well as named one of the 100 most influential women in the engineering sector. Her academic education is founded on dual master's degrees from the Technical University Kaiserslautern, I'm sorry, Astrid, I have not pronounced that correctly.
You're excellent. Keep
Germany in mechanical engineering and international management. In addition, she completed her PhD at the Goizueta Business School, Emory University, USA, in information systems and mergers and acquisitions. Astrid served as a professor for business strategy at the China European Business School in Shanghai, China, as well as professor for digital enterprise at the Goizueta Business School, Emory University, USA. Another very impressive woman. I'm so excited for everybody on this call to get to hear from them, and I will turn it over to Bato.
Thanks, Heather. Heather, it's really good to see you, and it's always good seeing you, Astrid. In fact, I was saying to Bailey yesterday, it's exactly a year ago that you and I sat face to face on the same stage in Japan and really got to some more about just women in STEM and the passion that we so love, which is STEM. So it's always wonderful to just chat to you and get to just pick your brains.
Good to see you again, Bato, again. I mean, it has been so long, 2 years, right? And what a crazy trip that was to come out to Tokyo.
I know.
See on the panel. You wouldn't do that today again, right? Today you would do it like now on Teams. You wouldn't travel half around the world to speak for 45 minutes.
I know, it seems like 10 years ago, but I mean, what I'd do to just get on a plane to go anywhere at this time.
Yeah, I agree. We would love to get out.
Yeah. So just to get into our conversation for the day, right? Something that we're both so passionate about. And I really wanted to just talk about women in STEM, the future of women in STEM, and really where our young women on this call see themselves, you know, within the STEM industry. Studies have shown that having a more diverse workforce and voices in STEM fields is critical for growth and innovation. However, according to the OECD and the World Economic Forum, recent study on women in STEM, there's only 25% of women in STEM, and efforts to expand this have not really gone that well. So I really want us to just chat about that, and that how do we get more women into STEM? And I hope really just at the end of this call, we can get more women to be excited about STEM so that we really do make STEM cool for women, right? Yeah. And maybe just to start off, Astrid, I really want you to you have this wonderful bio. Heather read it, and you know, it went on and on and on in a great way, though. I just want to just chat about, where did your love for STEM start? And how did you get here?
Well, I think, Bato, let's later on hear how you got to mathematics, but it was actually my beginning as well. Because maybe like many out there, right, you're in school and you wonder what are you supposed to do after school finishes, right? It's a really hard time because you have no experience what's out there, and you have no experience how these jobs are going to look like. So what I did, because I had nothing else to go by, I thought, so what do I like to do? Where do I have good grades? And it was math. So I started just like you, Bato, in mathematics. So I went to university and thought, okay, I give it a go, and started mathematics, and discovered after 1 year, I like actually a little bit more reality to go with the mathematics. So I like real things I can touch, not just to be in my mind to think, but also something real. And that's why I then, after 1 year, switched from math to engineering, which was a little bit more about as well touch and feel, and added then the international management as another direction. Because after 1 year, I think you get a little bit into the swing. You start to understand what the world out there is, right? When you're out of your parents' home, and you're starting to see the world with a different perspective. And that's really how I got into this world of STEM. It was really starting with, what do I like to do? And I think there's so many girls out there that enjoy math, that like physics, but they maybe don't dare to just go after it and see what the job might be with those educations, right?
I agree. I think, you know, STEM has been boxed up in such a way that you think, oh, I don't fit into that. And I mean, if I were to just share my story, I think I've been in love with numbers since I was a child, you know. I really do say it's possibly one of the love of my life is numbers. As a child, I collected numbers as a hobby. So people collected stamps and stickers and whatever it may have been. I collected numbers. I had a little book and I wrote all the numbers I could see, whether it was telephone numbers, barcodes, whatever. It was a weird hobby, but they just fascinated me. And so I've always known I'd get into sort of like the science industry. I just wasn't sure. And so my story is an opposite of yours. I got into varsity with a chemical engineering degree. So I wanted to be a chemical engineer. And then I quickly realized that I didn't really want to be in a lab coat all day. I love dressing up. And that's where actually I want to share this, because that's where you can always bring your personality into everything that you're going to do. If you're going to wake up every day and do something, make sure that it aligns to your personality. And I just couldn't see myself locked up in a lab. I really wanted to interact with people. And that's what I did. I then switched. I had majors as chemistry. I switched my majors to chemistry and maths, fell in love with maths, went on to do an honors in maths, and then on and on as a master's. But it really was something that I knew I wanted to do, but I had no role models growing up. I didn't know anyone who was female or Black who was in the maths industry. And so for me, I got into this and I thought, I want to be that role model. I want another young girl who looks like me, who's from the same background as I am, can see me and think, I can do this. If she can, I can also do it. And I think it's pretty much the same story with you. You know, anyone can look at you and just marvel at your career journey and know that anyone can do it because you did it.
Yeah, and I think what you need to be willing out there or recognize is you don't have to have a master plan, right? So I think just sometimes just do it, because if you like what you said, if you love a certain topic, you will be good at it, and there will be a career path and doors will open as long as you're really good at something. So don't overthink it. I think sometimes women have as well a tendency that we want to overthink. Everything should already be in place, and then we just follow up the plan. But that's not how it works, right? I don't know. I mean, with you, when you said you started with one area and then you decided, nope, not for me. That's okay. Failure is actually a feeling, or let's say a sign for me of confidence and courage to recognize this is it and this is not it, right?
I completely agree. I think, so many times life, you sort of think when you're younger that life is like an equation of some sort, right? Where you start somewhere and you end off somewhere, but it really doesn't have to be like that. And I've always been an advocate of, you need to shape your life into what makes you happy, right? And somehow, if STEM is something that you're interested in, but you can't quite see yourself fitting into that puzzle, start exploring it. Start asking questions, which reminds me, ask questions on the platform. Please use the Q&A prompt. Ask us questions if you have any interest in STEM, or there's something that you're quite not sure about when it comes to STEM, because that's what we want to do. And I guess a lot of what we're talking about is really inclusion, right? And diversity of how do we get more women into this industry. And for me, diversity in science refers to cultivating talent and promoting the full inclusion of excellence across the social spectrum. This includes people from all backgrounds. It doesn't necessarily have to be men, women, or women of color or anything like that. But really, I think STEM is underrepresented in all ways, whether it be women, whether it be women of color, whether it be people of color. But really, I think inclusion is just, how do we include all these backgrounds into this industry? But what does diversity mean to you in the science field?
In the science field. Okay, so it goes into more, for me, science is the topic about asking the right question, right? It's about identifying a problem and what is the question. And then you start to develop a hypothesis, finding the data that confirms or disregards certain hypotheses. And why is diversity so important? Because I think the more people you get together with different experiences and different views of the world, the closer you come to have the right question. Because one person will just have one very personal view, but that might not be the only one when we look at the problems we're having in the world. So that's why, for me, diversity is so super important. And when you then come together with these different views, that's where you need what you stated, the topic of inclusion. You're willing to listen. You're willing to accept other people's opinions and thoughts. And from science into industry. So that's the same thing that we are seeing now, of course, in the business world. Same.
I love the way you just broke that down. I'm just like nerd alerts, right? Hypothesis, and all the type of language that, we love using as scientists. So really such a nice way to break it down, really, because that's what I love. Because as a scientist, we are problem solvers. But it's always nice getting in different answers or different perspectives on something. because it makes us look at something different. And I think that's why the world is constantly changing and innovating. And so with every industry, we've got to find ways to innovate and change it, right? So I want us to talk about the work that you do at Bentley Motors. You have just launched your diversity portfolio. Please tell us more about that, because I saw it on LinkedIn. I was like, oh, I need to ask you more about that. I love it.
I mean, for us at Bentley Motors, again, I'm a firm believer, any company out there, any organization, we can only be successful with the topics of diversity and inclusion. So when we developed our Beyond 100 strategy, which takes us to 2030, which of course goes into topics of sustainability and the right products, yada, and the customers and so on, there's also for me this absolute important factor to get us there is that we get 30% of diversity in management by 2025. So 4 years from now, we want to have 30%. And with diversity, I mean people from all walks of life. So as you stated, it's not just about the female. It's not just about the ethnicity. It's not just about your sexual orientation. It's not just about age. People from all walks of life. And that's what we want to see in management. But in order to get there, right, we need to develop a strategy. It's not just the wishful thinking. So we are laying out the path, because now comes in us as mathematicians and very analytical people. So you have a number target, and how do you reach it? By getting the data where you are right now. And now you have to look through, okay, what are the processes that you have to go through to get people into management? So now you have to start over-indexing on every step of the process to get more diversity in, so that you end up with more people in management. That means for us, we are over-indexing on the topic of outreach, like today's call, right? If I can motivate just 5% of the people on the call here to please get into STEM, get into automotive world, yeah, that would be a win. Get more women that are willing to try the automotive world, outreach. Then recruitment, etc. So if I get not enough, just to reach the number will not be enough. We need as well, again, the topic of inclusion. So that's where we have to work on the culture. And that's where I'm really blessed that we have a very active colleague base. So we had just launched 2 weeks ago our colleague networks. And that means we have a colleague network that has organically created itself about Be Proud, so it's the LGBTQ+, the Be Inspired, which is about the females, and the Be United, which is about African, Asian, and any other ethnic minorities. And these groups really help us. So each of us in the board is a sponsor of one of the groups. And it really helps us to have a conversation and a dialogue to understand the colleagues on what works well, but where in the culture do we need to maybe put more emphasis. And what really was for me an eye-opener are videos from the colleagues that show on when you talk with each other on how certain words might hurt somebody's feelings, but other people are not even aware when they say those words, right? So this kind of unconscious bias or unconsciousness on how to talk with each other, right? You don't want to point out the differences, but you want to point out maybe that we could work together with the differences we have. So that in a nutshell, that is our diversity strategy. So we are on the path, we have a clear vision, and now it's about the roadmap to reach that North Star.
And this is something that you're clearly very passionate about, right, Astrid?
Oh, yeah, totally. I'm driving this full force. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we just had, for example, our intake of new talent, which is apprenticeship programs, for example.
Yes. Tell us more about it, because you're so passionate about that. You told me about it in 2019 in Japan, and then the other connected. You told me about it again. I was like, I want to hear more about this, because just to hear the incredible stories of how people come in as apprentices, and then they just work their way up the corporate within the organization.
I mean, the topic is not everybody can afford, for example, to go to university, right? Some people just simply don't have the means. So we have apprenticeship programs where you come right out of school to join Bentley, and you're doing partial you work and partially you go to college, so that you have an education and as well a business learning. And these apprenticeship programs run 2 years or 4 years. There is no full guarantee that you get a job thereafter, but in 95%
But
of
the
people
experience.
because they're simply good, right? And we know them and everything. So, but now coming back to my strategy, over-indexing the diversity and STEM. So we launched a new program, the Digital Apprenticeships. In the past, apprenticeship was very much manufacturing, engineering. But we launched a digital apprenticeship program regarding the know-how in data analytics, software development, artificial intelligence. So we're getting these kids from school. They're 16, 17, 18 years old. And I'm really proud to say that in the first two cohorts, the first cohort had actually 58% girls. And now the second cohort that just started this year in January has 63% girls.
Oh,
so
that's great.
Me, right, spot on, right?
That's great. And I think this is just a message to our ladies listening in right now, that, or rather watching us right now, is that, there's some change happening within our industry. Small steps, baby steps, but it's change. And I think we also need to always hang on to the positives, that there's change happening in some or another. And then on to another positive that I want to chat about. I know 2020 was a year like no other, unique in its own way, right? And we know about how it's impacted a lot of people, and women in particular, right? And the UN released a report earlier this year on how women have been the most impacted by the pandemic. But when you and I started chatting, being the the positive people that we're always so optimistic, we started actually identifying that there are some positives and there are some opportunities, rather, that COVID has created for women, especially women in STEM, right? And that's been highlighted a lot, that women are at the back end of vaccines and testing vaccines and actually coming up with vaccines. And women are at the back end of the digitizations of solutions, right? And so you also chat about some of the opportunities that have risen out of Bentley for women during COVID. Can you chat about more of those opportunities?
I think what a crisis does, and COVID now in specific, but many other, whenever you see a crisis situation, it accelerates change, right? That's just for me a fundamental. So every crisis will have an acceleration of a change. And what this COVID really did was it accelerated the work practice in the old industries like automotive. I mean, we are a 101-year-old company, so we are far from being a digital native. But it accelerated the way we're working towards this new world in an unprecedented speed that we would have never seen. So out of the sudden, I remember it like it was yesterday. We made a decision on Thursday in the board that we shut down the company Monday. Everybody go home, closing the doors, everybody home. And so within 5 days, everybody that could work remotely was working remotely. Where before everybody found a reason why we cannot work remotely, right? Because you have to see the people and you want to see what they are doing and you want to see that they are there and really working. Out of the sudden, no longer any discussion. Everybody worked home, everybody on digital platforms, everybody with their machines at home, and it worked, right? So within the people that could work remotely kept working remotely, and the people that had to be on the shop floor, within about 6 weeks, we got the COVID measures in place, we got the safety topics in place, and the people came back to do the work. That's how we work still today. So 13 months in, still everybody who can work from home works from home, and only the people that have to be on the shop floor to really produce the cars, they're there and in a safe manner. But what that means is that we needed, number one, we created opportunities to be remote, which means for many women, they were able to balance the situation in COVID better than otherwise, because kids were out of the sudden home, no childcare, no kindergartens, nothing, right? And I can't tell you, and many of you might have seen how often you had a call where either the child walked into the room or a child was sitting on the lap, everything normal, no problem, right? Everything became just totally normal. So to work while taking care of children is possible, and it proved it. And people worked more hours and were more effective than ever before. Number two, it showed as well that, again, the diversity is so key. If you run into a situation that is an unknown, we had no clue about COVID. We had no idea what it is. We had no idea how it transmits, how to protect, nothing. So when you start in a situation like that, you better listen to the people. right? So it was about getting people across the company together. And we were a group in the end of, I would say we were 12 people. And it didn't matter which hierarchy you were. On the table was the CEO, on the table was an apprenticeship. So we got people from all levels together and tried to find solutions. Every day was a new problem. You tried to find a new solution every day. Morning a problem, in the evening reporting to the board with what could be a possible solution. And that speed is only possible if you have these diverse mindsets and if you have analytical and structured mindsets. That's where it comes in against STEM. Because for me, STEM is one of the best training fields to be very analytical and very structured when it comes to problem solving. And that's what you need, right? In any kind of function, doesn't matter. If you go in sales and marketing, engineering, I don't care. If you can't think through a problem and you can't be analytical, not a good thing. So so we got to that point, and then the third part is that we had the digital apprenticeships that I talked about, 60% being girls. They came up with the idea to develop apps for the colleagues on their smartphones where they check daily the topics regarding, for example, the COVID symptoms, but where also when they came on site, they reported anything they saw that was not aligned with our safety measures. So if there was any breach, any problem, and all the way. Nowadays, we have a total dashboard report daily, live, thanks to all of the apps that we then developed, and they all run on the smartphones of everybody. So
I love what you said, and two things really stuck out for me because it's something that I saw just in my industry, right, or in my business. And I mean, I'm not as a big of an organization as Bentley, but there was just some common things there. The first one that you mentioned is you said that 30% of your staff worked from home, and then there were still staff that needed to be on the floor, right? But this goes also to prove the notion that so many times people have said that robots will replace humans, right? And you've just said what I've always said. Robots will never be able to replace humans because we still need those humans to program those robots, to build them as well, and so in some way administer and sort of look after all of that. And so to know that in a corporation as big as yours, you still have people on the floor. So there's opportunity for them to also plug into that. Secondly, you said that it allowed an opportunity for organizations to say, we don't know, right? But what do you think? And that so many times I think it's a thing about women, right? We always expect it to be superwoman and we have all the answers because we wear multiple hats, because that's who we are. We wear multiple hats, right? We are business women, we're career women, we're also mothers, we're sisters, we etc. 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 We run entities on the side, we sit on boards, etc. etc. And so we expected to have all the answers. And what COVID taught me more than anything to say, I don't know, but we can figure it out together. Let's see what solution you have. So it's also brought in that element for women to all confidently say, I don't know, but we can figure it out together. Let's come up with a solution together. And that's important in any way. And that's a leadership aspect that I think, a lot of women can take into any industry.
Yeah. And that's why I believe so firmly in STEM. With STEM, you can go into any industry.
Oh, yeah.
You learn a skill set that is, how to say, transferable, independent on what that company does, right?
Yes.
But that way of thinking and that way of problem solving, and that's just universal.
No,
so
I can attest to that. To have a background in STEM, but then have gone into business afterwards, and then gone to business school. There were so many concepts that I wasn't quite familiar with, but I was able to grab so quickly. Even I remember just getting into a finance class, and I just could pick up all the concepts and everything. And someone asked me, but you don't have a background in this. How are you so good? I said, I've got a training in analytical thinking, and so you can put me in any situation. I'll always think critically. I'll always come up with a solution. And if I don't know how to do it, I won't rest until I come up with something, because my brain's been trained that way. And so we're bound to thrive in any industry, and that's why there was a report that also came out that people in STEM are actually one of the most highly sought out individuals because of the way we think.
Because it's as well, we all know, right? It's not easy, right? It's a quite difficult education, and it requires a lot of thinking. But I think if you master it, all the doors are open for you. Then it just depends on yourself. How far do you take it?
Now, I just want to bring in a topic that's very close to, I think, all our hearts, including Girls 20. And one of their main objectives is really cultivating female leaders. Now, one of your personal leadership mottos is people first. Can you share some of your leadership values with our audience and how this motto has not only contributed to your success, but the success of mottos as well?
Well, I think people first is for me fundamental, because if you go in business, you can't do that by yourself, right? So you can run the company together. Yeah. And in order to get people to follow you, in order to get people to work with you, you have to be able to connect with them and put their needs and what they aspire. You need to understand it, and with that you can motivate them. So that's for me so fundamental for any company's success. That again, if you take a company, you take the people out because people are not first. Let's say money first or technology first. Then what do you have? You have an empty legal shell.
Yep.
It's not going to do anything.
Yep.
No technology in the world can run by itself a company. So the fundamental of every company are the people. And that's why for me, there is nothing to compare it with. That's the tip of the iceberg. And then the people first really helped us as well through the COVID crisis, because our first topic was people first, people safe. And that's why we made that call. Thursday, everybody home. Monday, companies shut down. Yeah, no car was produced, nothing moved. The doors were closed and locked. Everybody had, until we figured out, how do we run this in this crisis? How do we make sure that if people come in, they're safe? And until we knew how to do that, and until we had the measures in place, nobody was allowed on site. And as I said today, 60% of the people still work from home, because we just simply want to keep the site density low and not have too much exposure that we don't need for the colleagues that really have to be on site. So, and that created so much goodwill with our colleagues that in everything we did over the last 12 months, their safety was always the first topic. That created so much goodwill that they really trusted us on the way through this crisis. And I think that is fundamental. When you have people in a company that trust you and that do the extra mile, you can't pay that with money. So I think it has a clear business impact if you put people first.
I really do agree.
Yeah.
Because people do business with people, right? You could have this great concept, you could have this great organization, but if you don't have people at the heart of everything that you do, then you don't have anything really. And I think, one of my leadership values is leading by serving, and it's actually I picked up from our former president, and really everyone's president, I think, Nelson Mandela, because he always said serving is leading. And so every time I've actually been in any sort of position, I've always thought, how can I serve the other person? How can I ensure that once I walk out of that situation, they are a better person than they were before they got into it? And I think that also just what's led to the work I do in women advocacy, in just striving to get more women into this industry, right? So that I know that by the time I exit, I know that we've gotten more young women into this industry. We've gotten more women of diversity, and with me, especially ethnicity, women of talent in this industry, because it is an industry that hasn't really been open to so many women. And so it's always good to just take that through in everything that you do, because how you lead is actually how you are doing things in every single part of your life.
Yeah, I think you have to be authentic with who you are, right?
Authenticity, yes.
And if you're an authentic leader, that means the person you're in the office is the person you're at home, right? There is no difference. You're not just putting on a jacket, go to the office, and all of a sudden you're somebody else. So, and I think that's as well a part of where you stay grounded, no matter where you are, right? Build yourself. And if you forget about it, be sure your kids are going to tell you who you are when you get home. So they're not sugarcoating anything. And if you give them some stupid thing, they will let you know, right, that you did a stupid thing. So I think that's fundamental as well when you look into leadership and moving career. Be yourself. Stay authentic. And how did you do that? I mean, you had so much success. You were a founder, entrepreneur, created the academy. what was your impression on what's needed as a leader?
I think for me, it was all the things that, well, when we started the academy, I was still in my 20s, right? So it's all
Wow.
the things that I thought, what would I have wanted someone to have told me when I was a teenager? Or how would I have wanted someone to guide me or mentor me when I was a teenager? Because I didn't have a mentor, when I was a teenager. I didn't have anyone holding my hand and guiding me through, oh, maybe you could go into this industry, maybe this industry is not for you. I just sort of went with what I thought. And because I was good in the sciences at school, I thought, oh, this is good. This is going to turn out well for me. And so for me, it was really trying to, how can I equip the next generation of female leaders with the right tools and the right information in order to make decisions for themselves more than anything, so that they succeed, right? And are then able to then impact the world really in a way that it sort of has a rippling effect into all the other people in the communities that they come from. So I think really it really does trickle down to authenticity. You have to be so passionate about something that it just reflects in everything that you do, whether you are at home, whether you are at work, at play, anything that you do. But I have a very interesting question from one of our audience members. I'm just going to read it out for you now. It's from Jazz Dow, and I hope I'm saying that right. And she says, how do you cultivate the people first culture?
How do I cultivate it? I think that by every decision we take, I ask myself the question, so what's the impact on the people? If we do that, what does it mean, right? I think one of the trainings, again, coming as well for me from an analytical mindset, is you have to think things through. You're not acting just on emotion, right?
Yes.
You have to think a topic through, you have to ask questions, you have to get the data. And when you have it all together, you have to ask yourself, so what does it mean for the people, right? And not because you like it or because somebody thought it was a cool idea. And that's for me, people first, right?
Yes.
That they're always on your mind and that you care. I think it comes through if you care about people.
I think that's just so important, because so many times with the people first, it really is about putting other people ahead of you, right? Ahead of what you think is best, or ahead of what your what your culture says, because you really want to get to a place where people are happy and people are at a place where they feel like they can benefit, right? And it's always thinking about those people, because a happy staff is a happy organization, right?
Yeah, and I think the topic is you want to be a place where everybody wants to bring their whole self to work,
Yes.
right? You want a place where people feel safe to be who they are. If they have to hide the whole time something, they're not going to reach their full potential. But if they have a feeling of safety, that, for example, I had stories with colleagues where in the beginning they felt they cannot say that they are maybe gay because they were an engineer in the engineering department. So again, unfortunately, 95% just male. And they were in the beginning afraid to say it because they thought, well, maybe then somebody's looking at me strangely in the future. But to have that environment that they started to feel comfortable, and out of the sudden, when colleagues knew that person was gay, he just was super cool. And the people just felt, wow, that is so cool. So what do you like to do? What are topics that interest you? So people were curious about it. And that's the culture you want, right?
Yeah. And it's also just allowing people to say, you have a voice and we want to hear it. Which brings me to our next questions. I must say, please keep the questions rolling. You have some wonderful questions. And this one is from Nabila LRB. And she's also in the STEM industry. She's a woman in the STEM industry. She's actually a molecular biologist. And she says that she's still in academia, though. And then she says that so many times, and it's happened to all of us, where you are in a boardroom and you have something to say and you raise a point, and it's often overlooked, right? And then your male counterpart or your male colleague says it, and they're like, oh, great idea. And you think, that's what I just said, right? It happens all the time. She says, how do I find the confidence to address this?
I think you have to sometimes stand above it. Pick your battles. And the boardroom is not the battleground. If you have brought up a good idea and then a male picked it up and just re-emphasized it, apparently that person thought your idea was a good idea, even so they did not recognize you for it in the beginning. But don't pick a battle about it.
Yeah.
Rather, make them your allies.
Yeah.
Use them as your voice. So I firmly believe in turning this around by not battling it, but using the wave and ride it. Yeah.
That's true. Because if they took your idea, most likely they'll have to come back to you and say, so what was the thinking? Or I'd like you to join the team. Because it wasn't their idea in the first place, right? And so then they come back to you and they say, what do you think? Then you actually address it and say, okay, I'd love to be part of this team, but I'd also like to be acknowledged as part of the team, right? And my contribution to be acknowledged as well.
And what quite often happens is they will come to you and say, and ask, or you might go and say, hey, how about we work on that together?
Yeah.
And you do it as a tandem. And then with that, you're getting as well your way in. Because in the end, what you need is first you need to establish, how to say, you need to be recognized as a serious participant on the table, that you have something to bring. That might take a while, so be patient. If they talk over you, be patient, right? But it will come. And then you will recognize out of the sun when you say something, they will goddamn listen. And they will all of a sudden recognize that what you're saying has a real impact. But all I can say is be patient and please just be careful to pick the battles on where it's really important. And the other things, just stand above it. Just
yeah.
So you have nothing else to say than what I said? Okay.
Yeah. And you know what I like about what you've just said to me? It's also you just almost address it with grace, right? Yeah. Because I always say, never let the industry that you're in change who you are. So just because you work in an industry that is male dominated doesn't mean that you also have to be rough, tough, and all of that. You can still approach everything with so much elegance and grace that it just exudes in everything that you do, that people actually they love it and they love working with you because of that. And we've seen it.
You need a little edge.
Right? We've seen a lot of industry.
Yeah. Exactly, but then sometimes you need as well the edge where you can as well show that you can be tough. If something is a total disaster, that's when I say, no, there is time to battle. You will battle, right? But I think all women can battle because being a woman, being a mom, you will defend what you're believing in and you will fight harder than any other man for what you believe in. So that's why I think people become very quickly, very careful on where they want to fight with you.
Yes. And then that also just brings me to my next question, right? There are a lot of myths in just in the STEM industry, and we both know them, that women in STEM have to look a certain way or something like that. What are some of the myths that you would like to demystify when it comes to the STEM industry and women in STEM?
Well, I think similar to you, Bato. I love my high heels. I love my makeup. I love to get my fingers done, my nails done, and wear makeup and short skirts and sometimes tight tops. Totally fine, in all honesty. Totally fine. You don't have to run around in sneakers all day just because you're in the automotive world. So be who you are. It always comes back again to being authentic, right? And if you love your high heels, then goddamn wear your high heels. And I think you can be fashionable in that world, and people appreciate it, right? Yeah. So they appreciate personal taste, and both of us, we chatted just before we got here on the call, right? Both of us work with personal trainers. We love to do sports. I mean, that's totally fine. You can be who you are.
You can. And in fact, Priyanka said that she studied an economics master's degree. And one of the things that she found, that it was very male dominated and biased towards certain fields, right? Such as in the finance industry. And what she wanted to know is, what are some of the challenges that we faced when we were studying in the STEM industry in our graduate programs? And I'll start and I'll share for me, what was I remember my first day at university. I sat next to a guy and he said to me, are you supposed to be in this class? And I said, yes, I am. And he said, do you think you'll make it? And I said, oh, you bet you I'm gonna make it, right? And he said, oh, okay, we'll see. I said, okay, we'll see. Let's chat, at the end of the year. And mind you, I made it, and I was top of the class end of the year, right? But my duty wasn't to go back to him and say, told ya, I just really just did my thing, continue to do it, because that's who I was. And so you will have those people who will talk down on you and say, are you sure you're supposed to be there? Because I was dressed in a certain way, right? Because I had on a pretty outfit, and matching shoes. So he was like, what are you doing in here with that outfit? And I said, it really has nothing to do with it. In fact, I said to him, I think the science field needs a bit of flavor, and I'm here to bring that flavor. So what are some of the challenges and stereotypes you were faced with?
I mean, when I started mechanical engineering, we were 5 girls out of 200 something engineers, right?
That was us. Yep.
And of course, the 5 were visible. And I guess most of them, not that they actually, like your experience, nobody really walked up to us and was like, so let's see how long you survive, right? Nobody did that. But what was interesting was that I think women that go to STEM do that with a lot of thought process. I think no woman goes to STEM just because, I don't know.
You don't wake up and go.
Right? I think a lot of boys go into engineering schools without even thinking about it. But the women that show up, they have thought about it really hard. So the 5 that were there.
Sorry, Astrid, and they've also been discouraged a lot of other times before they finally go in.
Yeah. So the 5 that were there were girls that knew what they were doing. And that means, like similar to you, when it came to those extreme mass areas, the people on the top were the 5 girls usually, because they were there for a purpose. Yes. And that would be, I mean, it's not as impactful what you have experienced, but that would be my part of the story as well, that don't underestimate. And like you did as well, again, disgraceful, just let it go, right? Just sometimes let these things go. Don't get yourself aggravated by it. Don't try to pick a fight on it. I mean, they just don't know any better, and they just think they can make themselves better by talking you down. Just walk away and brush it off. If that's all you can do, see you in 10 years.
Yeah, right? Well, quoting the famous Jay-Z, hey, I see you. So now, and a fun question now from Alnisa. She says, how do you keep your work apart from your personal life? And when you are actually bringing work at your dining table, or do you ever bring work into your dining table? So how do you keep the two apart?
There is no apart. That thought of trying to balance work and life, at least what I have experienced, doesn't exist. Yeah. It's one life, right? Yeah. And there is no start or end for me of work. It's just, I mean, I have everything on my smartphone. Everything is on my mobile. Yeah, I can do my entire job on my mobile. I have my video conferencing if I need on my mobile, all the emails, all the text, all the data I need, everything is there. That damn thing is with me 24 hours. So there is no stop. It doesn't mean it has to be in all of the jobs, but that's at least how it is for me. And that means I live a strange life where I work in a certain place, but my family lives in another place. And to get to them, I usually have to either take a car for many hours or fly in the times when there were still airplanes. So I'm not with them all the time, but that means I use a lot of these digital worlds of connecting. And then when I see them, I try to shift the priorities. So it's more about shifting maybe time spent or priorities, right? There are days where I'm full-fledged just on the company, and there are days where I'm maybe 10% company and 90% kids. So,
and that's important. I think that's very important. And I think the one thing that works for me is similar to you. Is like, it's not like this is a hat I put on to say, okay, now I'm Mathematician Batu. Let me get into it, and I'm going to take it off. But it's who I am, and I'm constantly talking data to everyone. My friends can tell you, I'm like, do you know what that data reveals? Or have you realized that this is actually an algorithm? And my friends are like, oh, do you know that app? Do you know how it actually works, the algorithm behind it? But how I also found to just balance things is my friends are actually not scientists, which is great. You know, they are in the marketing field, supply chain tech, whatever it may be. And so it allows our conversations to be focused on other things, right? So my friend may tell me about something in marketing and a product or something, and I get so immersed in it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's so nice. And then somebody else may tell me about something, and then that also just allows me to just switch off. But in every single industry, because I am a scientist and because I'm always like, and you know this, every single industry, my marketing friend will tell me something like, have you thought about the data behind that and what solution could be built? And she's like, oh, of course you have. I'm like, let me give you an idea of how you could do it, because that's who I am. I can't separate the two, right? But I do find time to switch off and to just start engaging in the things that I love doing, my family being one of them. And when I do switch off, it is really time for my family. But I can't separate the two, because everywhere I go, even on a road trip with my family, I'll start telling them about something. But I must say that they find it interesting, or at least they pretend to find it interesting, and to save my feelings. But they do, because it's something new and something. It's really, science is so fascinating that you can bring it to any dinner table and it's just a conversation starter, because everything revolves around it.
Yeah. Cool.
So we have another question. I really, really love the questions. This one is from Anna, and she says, in my country, even though women do their job, they still have less opportunities for being promoted. How do you show that you deserve the opportunity?
So the first question for me would be, why are less women promoted? Is it like a unconscious bias? Is it, okay, that would be my first question to understand. But okay, let's put that aside. The second part is, for me, what I observe quite often is that women are more self-critical and insecure than men. So what I see is that men are better self-promoters, and women are not so much out in your face telling you the good job they're doing. So I think women need to have more self-confidence as well to show the work they do, and to then clearly state as well, I would be interested in another opportunity, or to when you see an opportunity come. So if let's say you're in one function and your boss doesn't promote you, is there a chance that you could switch functions and move on to another job? So is there an internal job market? Is there a posting of opportunities? And then for me, I think it is you have to have the courage, even if you don't know that field, even if you don't know exactly what the job is about, just go. That was my experience always, that every job I took, there was a level of fear, because I didn't know exactly what it was. I didn't know exactly how to run it, but you have to have that courage to say, I will figure it out, right? So have that confidence to keep going, and don't wait for the boss to see the good job you're doing so that he tells you, oh, you're doing a great job, why don't you take a promotion? That's not going to happen. You have to. Yeah.
So I just also want to answer Anna's question. So Anna, I can relate to you in the sense that, having done work on the continent in Africa and then also in the Middle East, is that it really is a huge dilemma, right? Where women are not promoted or are not recognized for the work that they do. And one way that's always worked for me is always over deliver. So when you're given a task, over deliver, so that people will remember you for the quality of your work and your work ethic. In that way, when the next opportunity comes up, the first thing they think of, the first person they think of is Anna. They think, oh, Anna can do it. Anna can do it, because Anna is really great at it, right? So always over deliver in everything that you do, because people will remember you for your work ethic, and the quality of your work. And I see we've got Heather back with us.
Hi.
I was just going to say I've returned. I'll let you wrap up though, and then I just want to say a quick thank you. So I'll turn it over to you for a wrap up.
Okay. So then I think we have one more question, and maybe it's also a nice way to, because it also has it's a nice way that I love to wrap up with you, is really, Astrid, what is the next thing for you? You've achieved a lot of success in your career. You've also been able to really impact a lot within the motor industry, not only at Bentley, but in your previous job as well. I know you were with Mercedes-Benz before this. So really, what's the next thing for you? Because I think you've like the Oscar, honorary of that industry. So what's next for you?
I mean, I really want to drive that 30% agenda. I really want to achieve those 30% in 2025. So that's for me a big goal that I want to make happen. So absolutely. And other than that, I think in these times right now, secure my mental and physical well-being. These are for me two main things. But Batho, what would be on your list?
I think for me, definitely is just to continue just opening up more opportunities for women in STEM. But a big part of that is the only way we can open up more opportunities is for us to sit on these boards, the boards that make the decisions for our countries, the boards that come up with the policies for our countries, because there's no way we can actually make a difference or make an impact if we don't sit at the tables that make the decisions. So definitely for me is to make a difference in that way, so that really in the future we can have more of the leaders that we have as part of our audience today coming on into these webinars and really speaking out their stories and telling their stories and how they've been impacted and how they're able to then impact the next generation. So really that's what I'd like for my side. And I think for Girls 20, it's a big part of the work that they're doing, and it's a big part of the work that they really are envisioned for the world, not only for Canada but for the world really. And so Heather, I'd like you to just take it from there and just lead us out and just tell us about all the great work that you do there.
Well, that was a wonderful segue, and I appreciate that. First and foremost, a huge thank you to both of you. Batho and Astrid, I always feel like sometimes we go to these panels and we hear everyone hit their talking points, and that's kind of as far as they go. I always appreciate when there's a lot of candor, particularly because I think a lot of times women don't want to be asked questions like how you do it all. But the reality is we have so many young women who want to understand how you're doing it and want and desire that insight. So I'm always super thankful and grateful and appreciative when women like you, who have these incredible careers and backgrounds and have achieved everything you have, to tell us how you have done that and are very honest about it and the challenges that it involves and Astrid, I think about picking your battles. I think that's such a good point. I also think just brush your shoulder off. I think that's also a really good point. So I really appreciate that, and I just want to say thank you both so much for that. We will be sharing this recording just in case by email to our community, just in case anybody missed it who wants to listen and get all the insights I just spoke about. I also just wanted to say thank you so much to Bentley. They've been an incredible partner of ours. And, they support us financially, they support us in these types of things. And it's what facilitates our work. It's what allows us to do our work, and it's what allows us to help create a world full of Astrids and Bathos. And that's what we're trying to do. So a huge thank you to Bentley for that. And stay tuned to our audience. Stay tuned. We are going to have a number of other exciting webinars in the future. There's some coming up in June. And then, I just want to say thank you again to everybody for coming on today. Stay safe, and I hope to see people again in person in the near future. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks, Batho. See you soon.
Thank you. See you soon, Astrid. Bye, Heather.
Bye, Batho.